The golden sun of California cast long and dancing shadows over the industrial heart of Van Nuys. In this corner of the world, where dreams were often constructed out of wood, steel, and paint, there existed a company born from the shared vision of a husband and wife. Mr. Ryan Fott and Mrs. Megan McCarthy had spent 7 long years building their production design and set construction business from the ground up. It was a place of constant motion, where the smell of fresh sawdust mingled with the sharp, electric scent of welding sparks. They were creators of worlds, building the stages upon which stories were told. Yet they soon found themselves entangled in a complicated story of their own, one involving the fine lines of labor law and the delicate nature of professional trust. Their journey into this legal thicket began in the month of January in the year 2022. It was then that they sought the expertise of a seasoned professional to handle the demanding tasks of welding and fabrication. They found their man in Mr. Roberto Encinas, a craftsman who boasted a remarkable 25 years of experience in his trade. The agreement was clear, and the future seemed bright. Mr. Encinas was to be paid an hourly wage of $39.50, or perhaps $39.75, depending on the specific memory of those involved. There was also a promise that he would eventually be integrated into the union, a significant step for any worker in the competitive landscape of California production. For months, the rhythm of the business continued with the steady beat of a drum. Every Wednesday, the digital threads of the modern world moved money from the company accounts into the bank account of Mr. Encinas through the process of direct deposit. It was a system built on convenience and the assumption of accuracy. However, beneath the surface of this routine, a quiet error had taken root, waiting to be discovered like a hidden flaw in a stage set. The business owned by Mr. Fott and Mrs. McCarthy was actually a dual entity. They managed 2 separate companies, one that operated under union regulations and another that was non-union. This structural complexity became the breeding ground for a significant administrative oversight. In the month of April in the year 2022, the company hired Mr. Encinas through their non-union branch for a specific project. It was during this transition that a bookkeeper, a man named Mr. Danny White, committed a small but consequential mistake. He entered the payroll information into the system incorrectly. Because the work hours varied from week to week and the job shifted between different locations and requirements, the amount of money deposited into the bank account of Mr. Encinas was never a fixed sum. One week it might be $1,800, and the next it might be $2,000. Because of this constant fluctuation, there were no flashing red lights or immediate alarms that signaled a problem. To Mr. Encinas, the varying amounts seemed to be a reflection of his hard work and the changing nature of the sets they were building. The error remained hidden until the 22nd day of September in the year 2022. It was on that day that the owners realized they had been significantly overpaying their welder. The jump in pay was not subtle when viewed in isolation. In one instance, a single deposit had reached a sum of $4,645. When the total was calculated, the overpayment amounted to $6,595.41. When the discovery was made, the atmosphere was not initially one of conflict. Mrs. McCarthy approached Mr. Encinas with an apology for the mistake and a desire to find a solution that worked for everyone. At the start, the conversation was amicable. Mr. Encinas appeared to understand the situation, expressing a willingness to enter into a payment plan to return the excess funds. He told his employers that he understood the situation and would love to work out a way to pay it back. There was a sense of mutual respect and a shared history of good working relations. However, the path to resolution was not as simple as a verbal agreement. In the state of California, the law regarding the wages of employees is strict and designed to protect the worker. According to the California Labor Code Section 221, employers are generally forbidden from taking back wages that have already been paid. There is a specific requirement that any deduction or repayment plan must be agreed upon in writing by the employee. While there were emails discussing the situation, there was no formal signed document that met the high standard of the law. The company began to make small deductions from the pay of Mr. Encinas, starting with a sum of $296. They believed they were acting with his knowledge and consent, but the legal framework required more than just an informal understanding. Shortly after these deductions began, The specific job Mr. Encinas was working on came to an end. The professional relationship concluded, and the promised repayment plan began to fade into the mist of unanswered phone calls and silence. This brought the parties to the hallowed halls of justice, presided over by a judge whose wisdom was as sharp as a diamond. The courtroom was a place where the messy realities of human life were distilled into facts and legal principles. The judge listened as Mrs. McCarthy explained her frustration, feeling as though the failure to return the money was akin to theft. But the law, as the judge explained, serves as a shield for the employee to prevent unilateral decisions by employers regarding their livelihood. The judge pointed out that for a worker receiving direct deposits, it is entirely possible to overlook an overpayment when the amounts vary so frequently. If a person sees money in their account and spends it to cover the cost of life, it is difficult to claw that money back without a clear, written agreement. The lack of a formal, signed document meant that the law favored the protection of the employee. Though the business owners felt a sense of disappointment, the lesson was clear. In the world of professional contracts, the pen and the paper are the only true safeguards. The case was dismissed, leaving the owners with a new understanding of the importance of administrative precision and the specific requirements of the labor code. As the sun continued its journey across the sky, another story of responsibility and friendship was unfolding in a different part of the community. This tale did not take place in a dusty workshop, but on the green expanses of a neighborhood where golf carts were as common as bicycles. It was the 21st day of May, a bright and cheerful afternoon. A group of friends had gathered at the home of a man known to everyone as Bubba. They were there to enjoy the simple pleasures of a weekend, the company of good friends, a few refreshing drinks, and the excitement of watching a golf tournament on the television. Among the guests were Mr. Justin Cockrells and Mr. James McMurray III. Mr. Cockrells had driven his car to the gathering, while many of the others, who lived in the immediate neighborhood, had arrived in their golf carts. As the afternoon progressed and the shadows grew longer, Mr. McMurray decided it was time to head home. He had a responsibility waiting for him. His dog needed to be let outside. When Mr. McMurray walked out to the driveway, he found that his path was blocked. Another golf cart, not his own, was parked in a way that prevented him from moving his vehicle. The keys were sitting in the ignition of the obstructing cart, a common practice in this trusting neighborhood. Without seeking permission from the owner of the cart, Mr. McMurray decided to move it himself. He climbed into the seat, shifted the cart to the left, and believed he had set the brakes securely. He then returned to his own cart, backed out carefully, and drove the short distance to his home. He was gone for only 10 minutes, just long enough to tend to his loyal canine companion. But in those 10 minutes, the laws of physics and the consequences of a small oversight converged. The golf cart he had moved began to roll. Perhaps it was a slight incline in the driveway, or perhaps the brake had not been fully engaged. Whatever the cause, the cart traveled down the path and collided with the side of the car belonging to Mr. Cockrells. The result was a significant dent in a 2011 model BMW. What had been a pleasant afternoon was now overshadowed by a dispute over repair costs. When Mr. McMurray returned to the scene, he found the evidence of the accident. While he did not deny moving the cart, he struggled to accept the full financial responsibility for the damage. He wondered if some other force, perhaps a gust of wind or an intervening act, had caused the cart to move after he had walked away from it. The dispute eventually led them to the same courtroom where the previous case had been heard. The judge, with a characteristic blend of humor and firm logic, listened to the story. She shared an anecdote from her own life to illustrate a point about social responsibility. She spoke of the humble shopping cart at a grocery store. Many people, after unloading their groceries into their cars, simply leave the cart in the middle of the parking lot rather than returning it to the designated stall. The judge recalled a case she had once heard where a stray shopping cart had rolled into a car, causing damage. The defendant in that case had tried to blame the wind, calling it an act of God. But the judge had ruled that the wind is not an intervening act if the cart should have been put away in the first place. If the person had taken the responsibility to put the cart where it belonged, no amount of wind or rain would have caused the damage. The judge looked at Mr. McMurray and explained that the same principle applied to him. He had taken upon himself to touch and move someone else's property without permission. By doing so, he became responsible for making sure that the property was left in a safe and secure manner. Whether they had forgotten a brake or whether the cart needed a small nudge from the environment, the responsibility rested with the last person who had operated it. The judge reminded everyone that in a community, accepting responsibility is the foundation of friendship and trust. Making excuses only serves to strain the bonds between people. It was a simple lesson in accountability. If you move something that does not belong to you, you must ensure no harm comes from that action. The court reached a decision, awarding a judgment to Mr. Cockrell's in the amount of $1,482 to cover the repairs for his car. Despite the legal disagreement, there was a sense that the friendship between the two men could survive. Mr. Cockrell's expressed that he did not want the incident to come between them, as they had been friends for 15 years. Mr. McMurray, though disappointed, had to face the reality of his oversight. As the parties left the courtroom, the lessons of the day hung in the air like the scent of rain after a storm. Whether it was a complex world of payroll and labor laws or the simple act of moving a golf cart in a driveway, the themes were the same. Success in business and in life requires a commitment to the rules, a dedication to accuracy, and above all, a willingness to stand up and take responsibility for one's actions. The sun set over California, bringing an end to the legal proceedings, but the stories of these individuals would serve as a reminder of the quiet importance of integrity and the enduring value of doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. The world of Van Nuys returned to its usual rhythm. Ryan and Megan would continue to build their sets, perhaps with a more careful eye on their contracts and a more diligent approach to their bookkeeping. Justin and James would likely find themselves back at Bubba's house on another sunny afternoon, watching another tournament, but with a new understanding of where to park their carts and the importance of the handbrake. In the end, the courtroom was not just a place of judgment, but a place of education, where the small errors of life were corrected and the path toward better citizenship was paved with the words of the law and the light of common sense. Through these experiences, everyone involved grew a little wiser. They learned that the law is not just a set of dry words in a book, but a living structure designed to navigate the frictions of human interaction. They learned that kindness and apologies are good starting points, but they must be supported by clear actions and legal correctness. And most importantly, they learned that a community is only as strong as the responsibility each member is willing to take. As the lights in the courthouse dimmed, the echoes of the day's lessons remained, inspiring a future where every direct deposit is checked, every contract is signed, and every shopping cart or golf cart is returned safely to its proper place.